videos about lifting dried watercolour off a dried painting. You could use a blade, but that's the least favourite of my options. I've got another 3 options that I'm going to show you that are much better. I'll just show you the blade very quickly. I'm leaning it all over the stuff I'm going to show you in a second. So it's scratched right back to the paper. But you know, how limited is that there are other things that you can actually buy. These are called scrubbers, so I'll show you how they work. You could use something as abrasive as a stiff toothbrush. You can use a sponge or a sea sponge. You could use an acrylic brush. This is a really stiff one. You could try to use a stick. This one has a really wonderful point to it. This wonderful brush is part of a series of flat brushes. These are all a type of flat brush. They've got slightly different names, but basically it's a flat brush because you have the bristles lined up in a flat order. Oh, this one is absolutely brilliant when the paper is still wet. So we're talking about when the paper is dry today. So let's get rid of that one. This is the same and this is the same. These are great when the paper is wet and you're dragging some paint off. So I'm going to get rid of them for a minute. Right, now we're left with some awesome brushes to remove, 2 types of sponges, and I'm going to briefly show you these. So this is just a stiff bristle brush. These are called scrubbers. So this one's a filbert, so it's got that little round shape. This one's called a silver scrubber oval, which is like a filbert. This is a silver scrubber with an angle, and you can also get, this is a Princeton scrubber as well. You can see I've actually used this one a bit. Basically, they do what the blade does. I'll show you those in a moment, but they do what the blade does, which is kind of just remove some of the watercolor paper. This is just a scrubby stiff brush. So again, quite good. Stick it in water and see what you can remove. And the same with the toothbrush. So you can guess what they're going to do. So I'm just going to put those aside so I can focus in on these, then the flat brushes, and then my favorite, which is the sponge. So I thought what I'd do is take this painting, this abstract painting, and see if I can bring something out of it and give it a little bit of form, because at the moment it's completely abstract, so non-representational, and I thought let's try and do some lifting and see if we can get anything out of it. So as I mentioned, I'm going to start with these scrubbers. So let's say I'm going to turn this into a mountaintop. Then you get your brush, a little bit of water, and you can start to lift. Oops, dripped water. That's another method you can use. If you put it on your tissue, you can see just how much you've moved, and again you can see by pressing your tissue down. So you can see it working instantly. So say I'm going to make this the side of my mountain. I can scrub a little more. I can also scrub out, so hopefully not get a hard line. Get rid of the paint all the time. See if I can scrub a little more. So very effective, but I'm being quite gentle on my paper. This is a 300 GSM paper, and so it's going to be able to take a little bit of this, but it is really rough. You're kind of like getting steel wool and removing. Press, press, press. So you can see why I used this one the most. This is called a Princeton Select, and it's called Fix It, which is hilarious because it certainly doesn't fix anything, but it does remove a little bit. I'll demonstrate the filbert for you. You can see it's pretty clean. It's got a little bit of purple on the end, so again, does very similar job. Wet it again, very similar job. I'm just keeping on going there to see, yeah, and I can see the paper just starting to be really roughed up. The problem with using these is that painting over it becomes really difficult because I've damaged the surface of the paper. So I'll get rid of that one. So this one, very similar. I'll skip that for now. I think it's kind of straightforward, isn't it? These are my next favourite method of removing, and this one is a flat brush, but in relation to the width, it's kind of short, so wet it and it's far more gentle. Look at what it's doing to the paper, far more gentle. I'm trying to remove a mountain shape. Okay, down there. So you can see it is removing it. The flat edge has these bristles on a flat edge line up beautifully. Now this one has an incredibly thin, if I turn it around, you can hopefully see just how thin. The thinner your flat brush is, then the more control you'll have when you're lifting. So you can see that's one of my absolute favourites. So I'm just going to lift that. This is another of my flat brushes, but not quite as thin at the end. So again, wet it, remove excess. So it will do a little bit. So look at that. But I will find that it's just not quite as effective as the beautiful thin pointed flat brush, if you can say that about a flat brush. Anyway, the other beautiful thing to a flat brush like this one is the chisel edge, because when it's wet, you can lift out. Yeah, it's not doing anything because it's not wet enough. Okay, get rid of that one as well. We're getting down to the little tiny ones. This is a black gold, and it's nice and short, but it's a little bit soft. So let's say we try and remove a little bit here, and oh, that's pretty good. It's really all you're doing is coming in and just wetting and lifting off. I'm up to this little bristle brush. Now this is my most favourite of all my lifting brushes. It's really cheap. It's got this cheap wooden handle that has never gotten damaged. It's absolutely fantastic. It's got this gold pressed ferrule that is in perfect condition, and it seriously cost me about $5. I can just make out it's an artist's choice brush, and it's reasonably short, beautifully thin when it's wet on the end, but it's just got the right level of stiffness. Okay, I'm going to wet the brush, get some more tissues ready for lifting, and I'm still doing a bit of a mountain. So I'm using the belly of the brush to move the paint around. You can see it just coming off gently there. But the beauty of this flat brush is that you can direct it. I'm going to go up here and wet again. Don't want the colour put back on the page. I'm going to take that right up to there and lift. It's very little that I'm lifting off there. So it's really beautifully gentle. Okay, just move a little bit of this around. Just softening all of that, because I want it to look a little bit like it's a mountain top that's going up there. Okay, I'm going to be thinking that this is going to be a mountain, and maybe this is also a mountain, so if it goes around to there. So let's see if I can lift off a bit more that goes over here. It's also, as you can see though, quite limited what you can do with a brush. And there's a certain point at which you just begin digging into the paper. So I'm going to move now to my favourite type of lifting on a dried watercolour, and that is to use one of these kitchen sponges. You can also use a sponge that's just one of these beautiful natural sea sponges. I'm going to completely, I'll just put it over here so you can see what I'm doing, completely wet it in my bucket. Squeeze out the excess. I'll just squeeze it there so you can see what I'm doing. Squeeze out the excess, get rid of the extra drips. And now Let's see what happens. Sometimes with these natural sponges, it just collapses, or maybe a bit like that. And sometimes they're absolutely wonderful. That one's kind of holding together. I'm just washing it again there. And again, squeeze it out over here. It's not that my goal is to wet the page, but my goal instead is to remove. And oh, I don't know if you can see that, but little tiny bits are coming off immediately, and I think they're coming off the sea sponge. So I don't think the sea sponge is wonderful for removing, because that's starting to degrade a little bit as well. I'm just going to dry that off. This is a kitchen sponge. So it's one of those ones that have some chemicals in it, but it's this tiny little bit rough. So I give it a I give it a rinse. Or I've got the camera zoomed in so you can see what I'm doing. But it also means that it's hard for you to see my bucket. Anyway, right, this has come down here. Let's say we make this mountain here. It's got an edge, so I wonder if I can use that edge there to bring it down. Oh, that's nice. And I love this hard edge. Oh, it's not completely hard. The thing about a sea sponge is it's reusable, reusable, reusable. These things have very limited life. Let's make this mountain come over here like that. See how quick it is? This is definitely my favourite method for removing, and in a moment I'm going to show you how I use tape as well. Maybe there's a lake. Put it down, press that side. You'll have seen me do this many times in videos when I'm painting my landscapes. Right, I'm going to go off that way and off that way, and then just see if we can soften that. How's that going? Look at that. Instantly can look a bit like a lake. When that's dry, I can do a little more. For now, I'm just going to soften. Look at all the paint that comes off. Press harder in here, because I really like this idea. This is a little whiter in there. So, is this still dry? Yeah. So I'm going to put this back down again and just go a little harder. Finding a clean bit, it's a challenge. A little harder there and really get some white. So either the sponge, yeah, I wasn't quite sure. There's little bits of pilling there. I wasn't sure if it was the paper or the sponge. I think it's the sponge. Then I'm going to really that, and now how's that? Okay, so it's starting to look a little bit like a landscape, and this is starting to look a little bit like maybe this is the water, and we might make this mountain reflect into here. Ooh, that's cool. Oh, and I can see another mountain coming up there, so I'm just going to rinse this one off. I'll just bring this over again. Rinse the colour out so I can continue using it, but it's probably really not going to survive much more than this, what I'm doing today. So should this mountain come down like that and join? That's a bit central, so maybe these could be clouds then. And this could come a little lower and put that like that. All right, let's just do it. Let's do it. And then I'm going to soften there. How's that? Yep, that's looking a little bit like a mountain. I'm going to give it a little bit of detail with my sponge. Take it off to nothing up there, and generally just remove some of the detail. Yeah, it's starting to collapse. All right, back to my tissue. Down there. So this lake could go further. Oh, it's lovely and dry down there. Let's use this same bit of tape. Continue along here. Oops, this way. I remember. There. Put that edge down and remove generously in the center and then out to the side. How's that looking? Cool. Yeah, that's great. All right, I'm now going to make this look like it's reflecting. The first thing I'm going to do is use more tape and create some lovely reflected lines in the foreground. So one around there. And I'm just going to put this down as well. And in here, removing is brilliantly easy to do. Maybe I'll see if I can lift one off the top as well. There, maybe one down here. Ooh, I know, I'll just go all the way across there. There, yeah, look, this is just completely collapsing. Okay, I'm going to chuck that one. Okay, how's that? Looking pretty good. It's okay. I've removed some from the bottom. It's a bit weird. Okay, let's make the bigger one come up to about there. There. And I'm going to make it bigger. Oops. I had it backwards. Anyway, I wonder if I can go back to using this sponge. Oh yeah, there we go. Now, about here, I'm going to scrub harder, and over here, scrub harder. Maybe a bit on the top, bit on the top. How's that looking? Starting to look like a reflection. Yeah, I'm on the way, I think. I need a series of little ones. So I was trying to get fatter, thinner, and now as I go up to here, I'm going to get really thin. About there and about there. Really lovely thin one. Get this one. Oh, I like that. Great. Okay, let's keep going. And put in another one that's even thinner. And maybe there. And this one, super thin. I'm also shortening the lines. Thin. One there. How's that? Ha, that's lovely. So I'm going to go back to my favourite brush. Actually, two favourite brushes. But this one is a little wider, so that one will be a little faster for what I want to do. Wet it, remove excess moisture, and I'm going to soften just gently in here so that the lines aren't quite so obvious that I've created hard lines, so you can soften the top of the lines a little. Top of. This line is just a bit silly, just goes all the way and no ripple's going to go all the way so evenly. So just by going in and softening near it, you don't notice it quite as much. Wash the brush, come back in again. Are there any more? I'd like another one here. Oh, how perfect was that? There. I'm going to just create a little bit of interest just here by putting a series. I've got to wash it each time. I know it's easy to forget. Little tiny series of little lines in there. There. That line is bothering me a little bit, so I'm just going to change that. Yeah, so I've got this really big lifted off section there, and that's quite lovely. But I think I need to take some of the colour, I've wet it again, take some of the colour here and put it in here because it's very wide. Or take some of this red and put it into here because it would be reflecting down there. Oh, that was good. Take that. Right, wet it again, clean it off. Take a little bit of this red and put it down here where that beautiful red would be reflecting in there. And just clean that off again. I quite like that because it's kind of creating a little focal point. Just put in a little more and put some of that red down here. It's better, isn't it? It's not completely looking like a reflected landscape, but it's an abstract landscape. So trying to completely reflect what is there in the lower half, it's kind of hard to do at this point because it wasn't planned out. But this is pretty good. So generally this water is darker than the what I want to have as mountains. So I'm just going to add a little more colour over there. Just clean it off. And I was using all these beautiful purples. There is, on my palette, I've still got some of the purples left because I didn't clean up over there. So I'm just going to put in some slightly darker colour down here. I know this is not lifting off, but I just want to finish off this little painting effectively. A little bit of pink, a little bit of blue, a bit more pink on my brush. I didn't like how I removed that on the bottom. That just looked silly. So I've gotten rid of that. I'm just putting in some ripples. Most of those ripples were removed, but now I'm just putting some in just to knock back that pattern, plus also make the foreground that little bit darker. Get a little bit more of this pink. And I'm going to be forced to get out some blue. This is phthalo blue. I used that in the sky. I'm just going to knock back some of that pattern there. Blue. Blue, blue, blue. I'm saying blue out loud, just for myself, I think. All right, how's that looking? Little bit like I've created a landscape. I'm pretty pleased with that. When it's dry, I'll give it a little sign over here in the corner, and if I love it tomorrow, I'll put it up on my website for sale. If I don't love it anymore, I'll be removing it from the block. This was all done on a block, and I'll be removing it from the black block, and it will become another cover for one of my mini journals. So that was lifting out. So it was about finding the right kind of brush, and expensive is not necessary. I wouldn't bother spending any money next time around on these bristle ones, these removing ones, these scrubber. I wouldn't bother spending any money on them. I did get a good start going, but you could see that as soon as I started using my flat brush, so this one was an Artist First, so same brand as this one, but a different handle. I prefer wooden handles, I really do. No paint to come off. It's a 3/4 inch, and I assume it's called a flat brush. Doesn't actually say what it's called, but I call it a flat brush. So anything with a flat end on like that, I call a flat brush. Oh, just remove a little bit more, just there. Make that mountain sit in front like that. That's better. Soften that bit there. Soften that. Yeah, that's better. That could be over here a little bit. Okay, I've moved into fiddling. Stop the fiddling. There. Okay, I'm going to say it's done. And these little bits down here aren't a part of it. So this is what it looks like, completely finished. It's definitely got something interesting about it, that one. So that was all about how to lift off dried paint off a dried watercolour painting. And I so appreciate you joining me, and I hope you'll join me again to learn something else about watercolour or mixed media or anything that I'm trying, anything that I'm investigating and want to share with you. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Bye.